Members, it is about time to make a start. We have attained the quorum. I'd like to welcome the Secretary and his team. And this segment is about works. We are going to be dealing with planning and lands in the next segment. Secretary will have your statement. Will you make it very brief, please? Chairman, thank you. Chairman, members, I'm grateful to members for their concerns about the estimates of the Development Bureau regarding the deployment of resources. We have given the replies to about 130 written questions. We'll be only too delighted to take further questions from members. In brief, in 2015-16, the Development Bureau's recurrent expenditure for the works portfolio is $14.49 billion, representing an increase of $450 million, or 4.5%, as compared with 2014-15. The additional provision is mainly for meeting the increased expenditure of $360 million for purchasing Dongjiang water under the water supply agreement. In 2015-16, there will be a net increase of 50 civil service posts to provide support for various works-related initiatives, including the creation of 25 posts to replace the non-civil service contract staff. I have the written statement. I won't bore members with all the minute details. We have 8 members who have pressed the button. 4 minutes for the Q&A. Mr. Xin Zhonggai, Chairman, Land for Housing Development. The Secretary has been working very hard to identify land, and there are so many infill sites that have been identified causing resentment. But there is a fine piece of land in the Southern District, and that is the piece of land where the police college is located, right next to the Ocean Park. It is going to be connected with the MTR next year. The the Democratic Party has proposed that the police college be relocated so that the site can be made available for housing development, public or private, to alleviate the tight supply. By the time the MTR is up and running, the traffic problem in the Southern District will be alleviated. At the moment, the Aberdeen Tunnel is chock-a-block full, and with the MTR, this will be a very good site for development. I know that it's not for you to say whether we're going to use the site. It is the Secretary for Security. I put the same question, and he answered very briefly that this is not under consideration. We have one single government, although we have a lot of bureaus. That this is a nice piece of land, and about 5 decades ago, the police college was located there. It was a remote piece of land. Now it is really a nice locality. Mr. Sin, you spent about 1 minute. We're going to deal with the planning and lands in the next segment. We're dealing with works here. Yes, I saved this till later. I'll let you queue up again. Ms. Chen Yunhan, Chairman. Question number 34. I am talking basically about the conversion of industrial buildings. Now, there are many artists and creative people in the creative industry who have to put up with exorbitant rents. In Guntong, Wong Tai Sin, where I'm familiar with, there are so many people who from the creative industry who move in these areas, and this revitalization program would result in a lot of hotels and commercial buildings being built. What's going to happen to these people in the creative industry? How many people are going to be displaced as a result of this revitalization? And how many studios will be adversely affected? My specific question is, what measures does the government have to look after these creative people? A lot of them are young people, and how can you create a prospect for them? Secretary. Well, Chairman, in this energizing East Kowloon, we did consider the needs of the artists. Perhaps I defer to Ms. Brenda Au, the EKO chief, to address the question. Yes, please turn on the mic for Madam Au. Will you press the button, please? Yeah, just press the button. Yes, yes, it is on now. Indeed, under the Kwun bypass, there are 3 sites, the flyover sites. We are looking for an appropriate charitable organization, non-profit making organizations to partner with us. These 3 sites will be used for recreation, for creative and arts workers. They can pursue their activities there. In the longer term, though, in the Kwun action area near the Kwun Pier, we would like to have more floor space for the creative industries as well. Yes, I understand that the EKO has done quite a lot over the years, but it seems to me that this is not anywhere near enough. The action area that you referred to, now we asked the same question in question 042, but this is going to be a new commercial area in Kowloon East. Now we have about 6 hectares of land there. It's going to be a good site for development for the young people to pursue their creative activities. But if you turn this into commercial district, it would be a totally different kettle of fish. Now this is a nice piece of land. If this is a cultural area like along the same line as 789 area in Beijing, it would be a good idea. And this is not exactly what we have in mind. All right, we have plenty of time. You might wish to save this for the next round. Ms. Claudia Mo. Chairman, water supply is something that falls within this segment. Is that right, Chairman? Water supply is irrelevant here. Yes, indeed. Thank you. We have the Director of Supplies, Water Supplies. Question 122. About water supply in Hong Kong. Towards the end of the reply, overflow quantities from reservoirs the past 3 years was 23.1 million cubic meters, and that found its way into the sea. Previously, 40.2 million cubic meters found its way into the sea. During torrential downpour, the reservoirs collected an excessive amount of water. This has not got anything to do with expenditure. Now, you said that no expenditure is incurred, and therefore it doesn't really matter whether the water goes into the water. You said no expenditure is incurred. Now, what about the Dongjiang water? Doesn't the Dongjiang water go into the reservoir as well? We have to pay for the Dongjiang water, although we don't have to pay for the rainwater. But at the end of the day, can't we talk with the supplier across the boundary about the supply? We don't really want to waste any water. From 2012 per cubic meter, it was $4.30. 2015, 16, it's going to go up to $5.50. So much. I mean, it has gone up by so much in terms of pricing. The water is coming to Hong Kong, but we're wasting a lot of it. Second, the desalination. Why is it that it is costing us more than in Singapore? We're dealing with water. It is $6.1 per cubic meters, but in Hong Kong is $8.3 to $9.1. And 2013, the figure stood at $12 to $13. Why is it that it is so much more expensive than in Singapore? Secretary, Chairman, we fully agree that water is precious, and we cannot, we should not waste it. But for some technical reasons, because of the weather, the reservoir is full, and the water has to overflow. And I will defer to Mr. Lam for details. Chairman, for the overflow of water, member asked whether that involved Dongjiang water. And because of the overflow, the water found its way into the sea. In fact, after 2006, this didn't happen. Before 2005, there was 100 million cubic meters that found its way into the sea. Now, since 2006, we've reached an agreement with the Dongjiang authorities, whereby no excessive Dongjiang water would find its way into the sea. Now we have 2004, it was 23 billion cubic meters. Now we're talking about small size reservoirs. We did think about like in Tai Town Reservoir, we have about 10 billion cubic meters. Last year we had some infrastructure put in to use the excess water for flushing purposes. The other question is the desalination plant. Yes, we might wish to give a reply in writing to Ms. Claudia Mo. Mr. Kenneth Chen. Chairman, I've always been very concerned about heritage preservation and tree preservation. I'd like to turn to the Director Order Report number 60. There are 140 historical buildings that have to be graded. Now we are following up on this, and the government said that they would get the grading of these historical buildings out of the way first, and then they prioritize on the buildings. But over the past year or so, let's say the Hong Kong Park, you meant to move the pumping station up there, and there is a stone wall which is 150 years old that is sitting there, and it's so precious, it has to be preserved, and we should not remove part of the wall because it's a big way for the pumping station. And Lugat Road, there is a hotel development there of concern to a lot of us, and the people are asking the AMO to have a look at the Lugat Road development. Now people are showing more and more concerns about the heritage locally, and they very much hope that the government would devote more resources to do the grading. But it seems that you're sitting on the issues, you don't really want to get on with it, you're procrastinating. Don't you have any timetable for this financial year? Now, in terms of allocation of resources, how many of these historical buildings that will be graded alluded to in the Direct Audit Report number 60? Also, according to the report, there are some buildings, I think 58, that fall within the PLA compounds. Is it because you cannot really get into these compounds that you can't grade the buildings? people would like the government to do the grading, and have there been any problems that resulted in the delays?
Secretary, thank you, Dr. Chen, for your question. My understanding is that for the AAB, for them to assess the historic buildings, they don't confine themselves to the 1,444 buildings. Maybe I can invite Mr. Lam to explain the matter also about the historic buildings within the PLA sites. Mr. Lam, for the grading of historic buildings, the AAB will do it in accordance with the sequence on a yearly basis. Out of the 1,444 historic buildings, they have been assessing the grading. Other than that, the public have also made recommendations for the priorities. First of all, if a building is to be affected by redevelopment, say for example, the owner has intention to redevelop it or to demolish it, then it will be given a higher priority. For government buildings, and including buildings within the PLA sites, they will be subject to the same criteria. That is, we will liaise with the landowner and then we'll get information and we'll try to come up with a proposed assessment. And then AMO staff will write a report, and then our experts will be asked to comment, and then the AAB will be asked to decide on the grading. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Secretary, I have some bad news to share with you. That's about Hong Shui Q development. That's your dream. I'm afraid it is not going to be realized. This is because many New Territories residents have told us that for the West Rail, it is already saturated. There's no spare capacity, and yet they don't see any new rail corridor being planned. So the grievance will only escalate. If you are to put in another 100 to 200,000 people, then I'm sure the dissatisfaction would only escalate further. Now, for the artificial island in the central waters, you need to have the transport infrastructure to support. I've talked to Professor Anthony Cheung for a long time. I just cannot understand. I cannot imagine how, after 2020, when the West Rail is fully exhausted in terms of the capacity, and what will happen. Now, you proposed the idea of having an artificial island. It's glad to see that you have persuaded the CE to say that the artificial island can be developed together with Lantau Island. I think it is a golden opportunity not to be missed. Very soon you have to come back to the LegCo to ask us to vote on the artificial island. In your consultancy report, are you going to make it clear as to the transport infrastructure referred to by the CE? Would it be more than a road or a bridge? Rather, it will be a cross-harbor rail corridor, so the anti-West residents can come to the artificial island and then on to Lantau. Would you consider this? Secretary, thank you, Mr. Tian, for your question, and we thank you for your earlier proposal, and it has been incorporated into the policy address. We want to do it, but unfortunately, we have not been able to get the LegCo's approval for the funding request yet. Maybe the PS can elaborate. PS. The short answer is in the positive. In our consultancy report, we'll consider road network connection as well as a rail connection. I can tell you that this will enhance greatly your chance of getting approval, because there will be at least 9 lawmakers in the anti-West constituency that are concerned about this matter. Another point is that for the XRL, if everything is moved, it will be commissioned in 2017, 15 minutes journey from Futian. How many people will come on a daily basis? To be frank with you, no one can tell. As soon as they step out of the XRL terminus, they will come to West Kowloon. I don't know whether we have an adequate receiving capacity. For the ground for the space under the Kowloon Park, I think there is some potential. I think you can channel the commuters there instead of allowing the commuters to go up the street level, exerting pressure on the road network. So are you going to explore the potential of the underground space underneath the Kowloon Park so as to enhance our receiving capacity with the commissioning of the XRL? I would like to invite Mr. Hon, Director of CEDD. Mr. Chairman, I know there isn't a lot of time, but then a week or two when I came, I've already promised that this will be given priority. One of the four, this will be given priority. I hope it will be given the top priority because the XRL is on the doorstep. Mr. Wong Kwok Hing, I must commend the Secretary for giving us such a detailed written introductory speech running to 24 pages. In your speech, you have referred to tree safety. There are 5 paragraphs, but you're still talking about the drawing up of guidelines, but then they are not legislation. So my question is, I think ultimately we need to have legislative backup for us to manage the trees and uphold tree safety. In this way, we can ensure public safety. Would you consider that? I have already put in my proposal to have a members' motion debate on legislation for tree management and safety, but it hasn't come to my turn yet. And then for the construction industry, I welcome your idea to have the preparatory work for the security of payment legislation. Sometimes the subcontractor or subcontractor cannot receive payment, and they may have to resort to radical methods to collect payment. So I hope that you will soon introduce the legislation to prevent having further arrears of payment. So please elaborate on this. Are you trying to do anything to target at the problems in the construction industry because they have toiled and yet they haven't received any pay? Maybe the PS can answer the question on security of payment. For the past 2 years in the construction industry, we carried out a very detailed survey. We did find that there was a problem with payment. As Mr. Wong has said, it is particularly serious at the level of subcontracting. So we are looking at the legislative route. We have already come up with a brief, and as the Secretary has said, in the second quarter of this year, we are going to commence public consultation on the proposed legislation. We've already completed the consultation with the industry, so we'll embark on a public consultation on the framework of the proposed legislation, and then we'll come to the LegCo. It is indeed a piece of good news, and I commend you for that, and I hope that something positive will come out of it, and then we can avoid seeing more subcontractors having to jump to their death to secure payment. What about the other question concerning legislation to uphold tree safety? As I have said, we still have an open mind. This is because as far as tree and landscaping is concerned, we still have a shortage of the relevant manpower supply. Moreover, it would also involve trees on privately owned land, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of landowners, so we need to study the matter carefully. Moreover, we have considered that perhaps we should try to see what can be done in the interim to enhance tree safety in our tree management work. Thank you. I hope that the government will expedite the work. This is because the wet season is on the on the onset, and we'll soon have the typhoon season as well. In the past, there were a number of tragic accidents, and I hope that you will make sure that you have got adequate support to carry out the work of tree safety. Mr. Leung Chi Chang, if I may ask a question about DVBW 039. As a result of filibustering, some of the public works have not been given funding in time. Now, in the government's reply, it is said that there will be appropriate arrangements and then tenders will be invited. What actually do you mean? What do you mean by making the arrangements in tandem with the invitation of tender? Are you trying to have a longer tender validity period? This is because the filibustering may mean that an item has to be on the agenda for a few weeks before the matter is put to the vote. So do you think that by having a longer tender validity period, you can address the problem? Maybe the PS can answer the question. Doing it in parallel, inviting tender while we're still waiting for funding approval. In the year 2001 and 2007, the then Legislative Council, in order to expedite the infrastructural work or the public works projects, have asked us to find ways to expedite the progress. And before we got the funding approval formally, we could invite tender at the same time, but we could only award the tender once the funding has been secured. What we're trying to do is to compress the time needed as a result of the filibustering. What about the validity period of the tender? Is it possible to make it longer? Instead of 3 months, say for example, for make it half a year. Yes, we can. But then if we are to prolong it by too much, the contractor will have to bear a high level of cost and would only push up the tender price. No follow-up, Mr. Chairman. Next, Ms. Emily Lau. If I may talk about manpower resources in the construction industry. If I may go to page 4 or 5 of his speech, it is said that in the coming few years, the shortage of manpower in the construction industry will be 13 to 15,000. And we have been told that 13,000 workers have been trained. So it takes time. And he has mentioned the importation of labor. I'm sure the Secretary understands very well that the local people are concerned about the rights and interests of the local workers. They don't want their rights and interests to be eroded. Are you saying that trade unions would always object even if you are to put in place safeguards? Or is it that you don't want to assure us that we don't have to worry? It has been said that in this quarter, in this session, there will be enhancement measures. What actually are you talking about? We need manpower. And then the local workers and local trade unions, if they can be convinced that their interests will not be affected, then it will be fine. The Permanent Secretary went to a meeting of the Labour Advisory Board. Maybe he can explain. P.S. Indeed, in the construction industry, we have certain types of jobs which have suffered from shortage of manpower. So we have to work through importation of labor schemes. In April last year, we launched the first round of enhancement measures, and That's in relation to the submission of applications by contractors. They have to be better prepared so that the Labor Department and the Labor Advisory Board can be facilitated in vetting the applications. Just this morning, the LAB had a meeting. Sometimes the imported workers cannot be put to full use because of the excessively detailed specification of skills. So we want to fine-tune it so that we can make good use of the imported labor instead of expanding the quota. Secretary, have you tried your utmost to attract local people to join the construction industry so that they think that the working conditions and the pay are attractive so that they're willing to join the construction industry? Yes, in the past few years, we carried out surveys. In the year 2010, less than 7% of the young were interested to join the construction industry. We have promoted the construction industry, and we have also enhanced our training. And recently, the figure has come up to 25%. So we do have new blood for the construction industry. For the average age, for the construction industry, it is 46. But then for the new blood, usually they're age of 35, 38. In other words, we have younger workers joining the industry.
Well, you should do more in this regard so that the locals will have employment. Yes, indeed. Before we consider importing labor, the contractors will have to go through a 4-week employment process. If they fail to recruit, and then they can make an application. There are some trades that experiencing a great shortfall. We may be able to train up the workers, but we have managed to train up the semi-skilled workers. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, in his speech, the Secretary mentioned the investment in infrastructure and the progress in this regard. Some members expressed concerns about the manpower resources. Now, the industry is facing a situation where the projects are unevenly distributed in such a way that they may be very, very busy at some times, but not so busy at other times. And that's in a way caused by the filibustering in the council. If I may put this to the Secretary. Now, we keep hearing from the Secretary that for public works projects, we'd like to keep the amount to something like $70 billion or thereabout. But given the acts of filibustering, the projects that awarded have been very slow. In the days to come, do you have any idea about the level that we're going to face? Will the level be lower than before? Secretary, thank you very much. We did conduct some assessment. I defer to the Permanent Secretary. Chairman, the government at the CIC over the past 2 years did conduct an assessment, including the 10 years of volume for the public and private projects. Because of filibustering, indeed, we've seen fewer public projects coming on stream. And for this year, the funding allocation has not been completed. We have submitted about 70 projects. There are still 50 that have not passed the PWSC. It's only when we have the results that we will be able to get the clear picture. Dr. Lo, we understand about the situation. According to previous estimates, all the projects should reach $170 billion for public and private projects taken together, but that didn't take into account the filibustering acts. The industry is particularly concerned about the situation, given that filibustering is routinely staged it seems that we don't have a clear picture for the industry. I hope that the Secretary and his team will monitor the situation there. If I may put another question about the public works projects. Now the consultants would be the front runner, and they have to do a lot of advanced work. And do you have any information about the consultancy work? Secretary. Last year, we came here for funding. It was $6 billion that was earmarked. As the Permanent Secretary said, the projects that were not approved last year will be moved to this year. If LegCo can speed up the process, we can certainly make up for the lost time. As regards to the consultancy work, we did experience some delays in our application for funding. Mr. Chen Kam-lam, Chairman, the Secretary said a moment ago that in previous years we managed to endorse a few hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects. Now, because of filibustering, we might experience delays, and the government may not be in a position to give a clear assessment. Chairman, there are some projects that have been approved. Let's say in 2012-13, some projects have already been approved, but they, because of the higher costs, they may need to come to the PWSC for further funding, but these applications are rejected. It would take some time before the project would come back to us again. Now, halfway through the projects, the whole thing may be grinding to a halt. And let's say the Liantang Hengyunwai work is in full swing in Shenzhen, and here in Hong Kong, at the PWSC meeting, the government sought further funding, but that didn't get passed, and the project stopped dead in its track, and it is difficult to get on with it. So in this kind of scenario, I'd like to put it to the administration: how are they going to deal with this? Will they suspend the work, or will they do something about the situation? Secretary. Chairman, indeed, it is most unfortunate that the funding request was rejected at the PWSC meeting. As Mr. Chen Kam-lam said, the project was endorsed by the Council before, and work is underway at the moment. We are considering how, as a next step, liaise with the Council to resubmit the proposal for approval by the Council. Mr. Chen. Indeed, the project has been approved before, but since additional funding is needed, of course, the government has to come to us again for additional funding. But if the project is delayed by filibustering, or if it is blocked by the Council, then we may end up in a situation where the project will not proceed any further, and that would cost us even more than otherwise be the case. Does the government have any worst-case scenario and any approach to dealing with this? Secretary. There are two parts to the funding request. The first one is, like Mr. Chen said, the additional funding request. The other one is the new request funding for the superstructure. The government is of the opinion that these projects are terribly important. We cannot afford to have a situation where we have to suspend the project halfway through, because the cost will certainly mount up at the end of the day. So we have to come back and discuss with members how we should resubmit the proposal. Mr. Chen. I know that some of the projects have already been put out to tender. Now, what is the validity period of the tender documents? Now, will we end up with a situation where we have to re-tender the projects, Secretary? Well, indeed, this is our concern. The validity period will last until the middle part of the year, so we have to come back and discuss with members. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, also Human Resources Chairman. We talk about the cost overrun and so on. I think one of the reasons for that is the labor shortage. And the labor cost is creeping up. On page 4 of his speech, the Secretary said that $100 million will be set aside to support the CIC's initiative to start the training program. I know that you have more details going forward, but for these $100 million, how many more workers are we going to have in the coming few years? Now, you said that there is a shortfall of 10,000 to 15,000. Now, with the $100 million, how many people can you train up? I don't think these funding requests will be blocked. Is it the case that more funding would mean that more workers will be trained up? Over the next 5 years, Mr. Secretary, will you be able to train up enough workers to make up for the shortfall? Secretary. Thank you very much, Chairman. And Mr. Sin's question, I think this is similar to Ms. Emily Lau's question. Now, for this $100 million funding, the CIC has been training up young people, but they are semi-skilled workers, and they have to be in the trade for some years before they would become skilled workers. Now, we have a shortfall of 10 to 15,000, and they are skilled workers. We understand that we are stepping up our efforts to train up the workers in such a way that the semi-skilled workers will be able to go on to become skilled workers. And now we are going to earmark $100 million. Now, this is not a big sum of money. We've asked the CIC to see how best they can utilize the $100 million and come up with a program. Other than this $100 million funding, the trade should also put in the resources to utilize the $100 million to put together a training program. It would take time to train up people, notwithstanding the funding being made available. We still need to import skilled workers appropriately. Secretary, I'm not talking about the importation of foreign labor. You can save this till later. With $100 million being set aside, more workers will be trained up. Is it the case that more money would yield more workers? And what is your anticipation? What is your anticipated number of workers being trained up additionally? Secretary, we have a quota of about 1,000. Mr. Sin, when this program is rolled out, we will look at the effectiveness. If this is sufficiently effective, we will go to the Finance Committee for further resources. So 100 million would train up 1,000 people, is what you're saying. Permanent Secretary? Well, like the Secretary said, now we have been training the semi-skilled workers, and we have the apprenticeship system, and it would take an awful long time for semi-skilled workers to go on to become skilled workers. So we'd like to have a shorter time frame here with this $100 million. Now, this amount, together with the resources from the CIC and the trade, we'd like to put in place a scheme. So 100 million for 1,000, that would cost you 100,000 per worker. Well, indeed, it would take this amount of money to train up the workers. Ms. Alice Mack. I was going to ask a question about the water pipes now. I'd like to follow up on Mr. Sin's question. Overrun, cost overrun is caused by worker shortfall. Is it really the case? I hope that the Democratic Party should not blame the workers themselves. The Permanent Secretary said that you've been to the LAB to talk about the enhanced program. I understand the labor sector is very skeptical about this enhanced scheme. We're not saying that we should not have any supplementary labor scheme. We do have a mechanism at the moment. If there is a shortfall, why is it that you need to have an enhanced program? Is it going to be a backdoor for the employers to bring in workers to Hong Kong to work in different construction sites? How are you going to safeguard the interests of the workers? From the news, we learned that in Singapore they are going to ban alcohol in 2 places. Now, these are the 2 places where the foreign labor will be congregating, and they're causing social problems. Now, we always replicate examples from other jurisdictions. Do we have to follow the Singapore example and ban the sale of alcohol in certain places? I hope that the Secretary would understand the insistence of the labor sector. We believe that we do have the mechanism in place. If there is a shortfall for certain trades, certain disciplines, there is the existing scheme, and there is no need for the government to provide shortcuts to the employers. I hope that there is a clarification from the Secretary. We should not blame the cost overrun on the workers, and this is really a very serious allegation.
And then I would like to turn to my question. 131. At the district level, we are most concerned about the bursting of water mains. In your reply, the WSD has told us that for Yuen Long, for the water pipes having an age of 25 to 30 years and more than 30 years, Yuen Long performs worst. I want to know what we can do to monitor the leakage of water and the quality of the water mains. In Yuen Long, since we have got water mains that are older, so I want to know whether you're going to expand the scope of your work to repair and maintain, or as well as to replace the water mains. Secretary PS can answer. On other occasions, I've already said that cost overrun has no direct relationship with the workers' wages. Thank you for your clarification. It is important. But then cost overrun has to do with shortage of labor, because the contractor cannot be sure whether he can get enough manpower at the time of tendering, and so a risk factor has to be included. Please identify which project has its cost overrun being attributed to labor shortage. It is not because of labor shortage, but please identify the relevant trade where there is a labor shortage, and so it has caused a cost overrun in a particular project. We've carried out a detailed survey. The outcome of the survey can be supplied to you for your reference. We have asked the contractors as to the factors they have to consider when putting in a bid for a tender. Labor shortage named as one of them. 045, Mr. Chairman. In the policy address, East Kowloon will be regarded as a pilot place for running a smart city. The concept of walkability will be emphasized. In the year 2013 and 2014, consultants have been invited to look at Kwun Tong action area and Kowloon Bay action area in relation to the flow of pedestrians. We all know that we have Kai-Tak Fantasy, and there's also a sports complex in Kai-Tak, and there's already a cruise terminal in Kai-Tak. So we're going to see a lot of tourists as well as local visitors going to Kai-Tak. So if you will only consider the case of Kowloon Bay and Kwun Tong in terms of walkability, then I think it is very restricted. I wondered if you're going to expand the scope of the study and have it extended to Kai-Tak as well. To me, To Kwa Wan is facing the problem of an excessive number of tours, and so the roads are congested. Of course, you would say that Kowloon East won't cover To Kwa Wan, but what about Kai Tak development? If you look at Kowloon East including To Kwa Wan, then it will be better, so that the entire region will not be affected by the problem of an excessive number of tourists as well as local visitors. Are you going to consider my proposal? I'd like to invite Ms. Brenda Au, Head of Energizing Kowloon East Office, to answer. Ms. Au. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, we were giving an answer in relation to the consultancy study to enhance the pedestrian and traffic environment in Kwun Tong business area. For Kai Tak, it is a new development area. So at the time of at the time of designing, we already took into account the impact of tourists as well as local visitors on the transport. So we have already reserved adequate capacity to take care of that. Mr. Yu, I can't accept such an answer. I'm talking about a larger area. For Kai Tak itself, of course, it will be fine because it is a new area. It's up to you to design the roads, etc. But then we have a large number of tourists. Certainly, they will spill over to Kwun Tong, To Kwa Wan, or even Kowloon Bay. So have you ever studied the effects? That is how the two areas will be affected by the large number of visitors. Well, even for Kai Tak, they are suffering from the bottleneck. Permanent Secretary, Kowloon East covers Kwun Tong, Kai Tak, and Kowloon Bay. In fact, two traffic improvement studies have been carried out, one in Kwun Tong, the other for Kowloon Bay. So they're identifying sites for coach parking. The two studies will certainly cover this. Mr. Hon, you have something to add? Yes, Mr. Chairman, related to what the director, what the PS has said. For Kowloon East, we have Kai Tak, Kwun Tong, and Kowloon Bay. So we will take the three together. In the long term, as Mr. Yu would know, we have the environmentally friendly linkage system. In the long term, that can resolve the problem. Leung Kwok Hong, you blame cost overrun on filibustering. For Lian Tang, you know that when you excavated the site, you found sludge. So has it got anything to do with filibustering? For the cost overrun of XRL, for the cost overrun of Sha Tin Central line, how can you blame it on filibustering? And then the FTU had a survey, and they have found that the wage increase is slower than inflation. So what are you talking about? You are so you are bad-mouthing. It's a lie. Mr. Y, I know you are about to retire. You have to be fair. Labor shortage, of course, the contractor would try to factor in and push up the bid price. What about the falling value of US dollar? Are they going to lower the bid price? So are you an idiot? I'm putting the question to you. In how many cases have you miscalculated, and so there is a cost overrun? How come that you are blaming it on the workers? I think the consultants, the designers have made mistakes. For the MTRCL, they are still having 5% as consultancy fees. If you made a wrong calculation, you should pay for the compensation. Now, you are blaming filibustering for a cost overrun. Tell us, in which project have you found that cost overrun is due to filibustering? Which project? Secretary, Mr. Leung has mixed up everything. I'm directing the question at you, Chair. I'm directing the question at him. For the XRL cost overrun, Liantang cost overrun, Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge cost overrun, Sha Tin Central Link cost overrun, West Kowloon Cultural District overrun. How many of them have cost overrun owing to your mistake or due to filibustering? Whenever there's a cost overrun, we are being asked to top up, so we have to be ever more careful. I think you have suffered from schizophrenia. Mr. John Zhang has always underestimated the revenue. For you, you have always underestimated the expenditure. So what sort of government have we got here? So let me say this again. For John Zhang, he would underestimate the revenue. For you, you underestimate the expenditure. That's always the case. So you accuse me of mixing things up. What have I mixed up? You can go out to tell the reporters. For the XRL, Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge, West Kowloon Cultural District, Liantang, and Sha Tin Central Link, which of them has suffered from cost overrun because of filibustering? I think Mr. Chen Kam Lam Let me finish first. If the validity period has expired, then it has to be retendered again and the cost will go up. For the golf course, it is said that it has been on hire, and so you can't carry out the site investigation. For Liantang, you were unable to discover the sludge in your site investigation work, so you are just allowing others to gain. Dr. Helena Wong. For Dongjiang water and also desalination. In your speech, Secretary, you have said that $450 million more has to be incurred because under the water supply agreement, we need to incur $320 million more. $360 million more. Is it because of the water supply agreement to buy Dongjiang water? Director, we have just completed the negotiation with the authority concerning the new agreement, and there has been a price differential. Currently, for the price for Dongjiang water, it is $3 billion a year. $3 billion. Does it cover the water treatment and filtering carried out by the WSD? No, just the purchase. $3 billion. Many people are concerned, and in fact, it's been pointed out in the speech of the Secretary. We would like to have more water resources supplied locally. But then it will take a long time before we can get a local source of supply. But then at most, we can only supply 5 to 10% of the local water supply, even with desalination. In other words, 90% of our water supply will still be reliant upon Dongjiang water. Director, currently 70 to 80% of the water comes from Dongjiang. If we can have 5 to 10% coming from a local source, then we can lower the demand for Dongjiang water. Does it mean that the volume agreed in the agreement will be lowered? Last year, we had an agreement and we fixed the amount. For the new agreement, we will have an assessment about our demand for water as well as the supply of local water resources. Does it mean that we have a say as to how much we want to buy under the new agreement? Well, the agreement has been fixed for the next round. Every time we would negotiate again as to how much Dongjiang water we need. In other words, in future, we don't need as much as $3 billion to buy Dongjiang water. Well, for the last agreement, 3.9 billion. Now it would be 4.2 4.2 to 4.4 or up to 4.7. We have to look at the cost of living as well. So the mechanism is clear. It is a matter of an increase of a few percentage points. And the question is about high-tech development. Many projects are involved, like the sports complex. Now, question for the Secretary for Kaiching and Tek Long housing estates. A few dozens of thousands of people are already living there. They are looking forward to the park on the runway in Kai Tak. When will it be materialized?
Mr. Hon. Chairman, I think Ms. Wong is asking about the 20 hectares of Metropolis Park, and this is the Metropolis Park. We had the idea of providing the facilities there. We'll have a look at the facilities. Mr. Tony J. Filibustering is adding to the construction costs, and this is very, very plain. Because of filibustering, it is undermining the entire projects. This would have a profound effect on Hong Kong. We don't have to argue over the detrimental effect of filibustering. If I may follow up on Mr. Wong Kwok Heng's question, and question 050, there are 20 projects that have experienced a delay of 6 months, and the cost overrun is $2.5 billion. Are you basically talking about the 27 projects? I understand that some of them have been approved and some of them have not. So the figures, what sort of time frame are we talking about? Are the costs going to increase further? Are we talking about any compensation, or is it just because of the cost overruns due to filibustering? Permanent Secretary. The extra funding is because of the fact that the projects have been delayed and they are not being considered by members at the time that we have in mind, and that has caused additional funding. Mr. J. So there is a good chance that there would be further funding that will be needed, that it will be more than $2.5 billion. Yes, if there will be further delays, we'll have to reconsider the funding. How many of them have already been subject to the funding, the tendering process? We do explain what projects have been tendered and what have not. All the details are in the reply. Mr. Tony J. Question number 56. Now, question number 4. The government mentioned that on reimbursement of tender submission costs, the ASD will follow the prevailing government policies. Can you be more specific about the government policies? Would you like to encourage more young people or SMEs to take part in the tender exercise? Will there be any cash recompense? I defer to Mr. Leung. Now, in relation to the tender fees, normally we do not reimburse the tendering fees to the tenderers. Mr. J, I hope that the government will reconsider this. Now, we are encouraging those who are not well resourced financially to take part in the tendering. Now, we're not really talking about an awful lot of money. Perhaps you might wish to consider this. Any further questions for the first round? I have 5 on the list who have pressed the button. 6. Anybody else? 3 minutes. Ms. Chen Yunhan. Thank you, Chairman. I hope that the Secretary or the EKO head will address this question about the action area. The Permanent Secretary, Mr. Y, is retiring, and I hope that you remember what you said. Professionals do remember the statistics. The government said that there is a shortfall of 10,000–15,000 workers. Each year, the wages are lower than the inflation level. The unions are telling us that they may be going for interview, but a lot of them do not get hired. Now these are 50 or 50-odd-year-olds. If the government has conducted some studies, you wouldn't arbitrarily say that these are caused by the labor shortage. That they may be talking about the wages, and I think the government should be scientific enough in coming up with the statistics. Our statistics are not really the same as yours. At the LAB, we're telling you that by importing labor, you would be affecting the employment of local workers. Ms. Alice Mack talked about Singapore. The government is replicating a lot of things from Singapore, and there are some foreign labor frequenting certain districts, and alcohol is banned in these districts. Now, because of the higher wages, you are trying to bring in more labor. You haven't addressed the question as to why the workers are finding it so difficult to find jobs. It seems to me that you've conducted some studies. I am prepared to talk to you about these studies. Secretary, the Permanent Secretary has some figures regarding the action area and the construction workers. Let me address the wage level first, and then I'll defer to the EKO head for the action area. I think I have made it sufficiently clear that the workers' wages are not the contributing factor to the higher costs. But labor shortage is what they don't really want to make the distinction. I must emphasize once again that the higher costs, we've conducted a lot of studies. We may not have enough time. Yes, please give us the information in writing. The 10,000–15,000 shortfall was arrived at according to scientific studies. To spread that out, the Kwun Tong action area, now there will be commercial floor space and office space. We hope that there will be sufficient space to be made available to support creative industries. Mr. Kelly Chen, 3 minutes. Chairman, I'd refer to the preservation of historic buildings and the grading. I put a question that Mr. Lam was just about to answer, and that is about the 58 historic buildings within the PLA sites. What is the grading situation like, and the difficulties encountered? Mr. Lam. Now, for the grading of the 1,444 buildings, some of them fall within the PLA sites. We have communicated with the PLA, and on a professional level, we have done some advanced preparation work. We will proceed with the grading. So for these 58 buildings, none of them has been graded. You are just getting on with the grading. So none of them has been graded, has it? Mr. Lam. Yes, as I said, we are getting in touch with the PLA. We're doing the advanced work. We're not doing them individually. We are dealing with them as a batch. These buildings that fall within the PLA sites. We have exchanged some information, and we have conducted some useful communications. Mr. Lam, what is the progress and what is the time frame? You're doing it as a batch. Do you think you would be able to complete the grading of this whole batch of 58 historic buildings? Mr. Lam. Chairman, at the AAB, the AAB has the list of priority, and as I said earlier on, if there are some private buildings and that would be under development pressure, we will advance them. There are some private historic buildings that we have already started preparatory work. Mr. Lam, I know you are very articulate, but I think you are coming back to the principles. My question is very focused. Are you confident that you will be able to complete the 58 buildings in terms of grading within this financial year? Yes or no? Mr. Lam. Well, we will work in accordance with the priority. If there is redevelopment pressure, we will advance the priority. But for the 58 buildings, the AAB or the AMO will get on with them in accordance with the priority. I cannot say the specific timetable for individual buildings, including those within the PLA sites. So, put it simply, you don't know. Yes. Ms. Alice Mack, round 2, 3 minutes. The Permanent Secretary, you said you've conducted some studies. I'm not asking about the studies per se. You said the cost overruns are due to labor shortage. My question is, what sort of cost overrun, what items of cost overruns was caused by a labor shortage? Now, the government projects that are experiencing cost overruns, which item was caused by a labor shortage? Some statistics. Permanent Secretary. Now, the rise in the construction cost, one of the reasons is labor shortage. Well, you mentioned cost overrun, you mentioned labor shortage. Is it not the case that the two are related? I'm talking about the rise in the construction cost. Well, I don't think you should blame the cost overrun on the laborers. Water supplies director in Yunlong, we have a lot of old water pipes. How are you going to address the water leakage problem? In question 026, we have the rehabilitation of 3,000 meters of water pipes. We have covered 2,300 and 304 within Yunlong. So 257 in 213 is come down to 12, and we will get on with the remaining parts of the work this year. Now, you talked about the water intelligence network. Now, if we have 2,000 or so accounts, we will group them into a district, and we would retrofit sensors to detect the water leakage. We have already got started with the installation work. Are you going to have sufficient manpower to get on with the WIN project? Yes, indeed. We have already started with the work. We will engage professionals to retrofit the sensors in different districts. That doesn't present any problem at all. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, 3 minutes for the second round. Chairman, thank you. Secretary, page 17 of your speech. I'm not terribly familiar with the subject, so do bear with me. There is an element of reclaimed water. You said that in Shengshui Fanling and some of the NDAs, there will be a supply of reclaimed water for flushing and non-potable purposes. have you compared the costing? Is it going to be cheaper to use the reclaimed water than it would be using the salt water? Why do you consider these few areas for the use of reclaimed water in place of salt water? I defer to Mr. Zhong from the DSD. Mr. Zhong, Chairman. In NT, Northeast NT, we are developing the sewage treatment work, and the treatment grading will be upgraded from grade 2 to grade 3. Now at the Shortfall water treatment works, when we sought funding for that, we did explain the situation. Now we upgrade the treatment category, and the treated water discharged is of a higher quality, is only with simple disinfection that we can recycle the water. So the cost arising from the recycling would not be terribly high. Mr. Sin. Now you also refer to the NDAs. Is it because you have these treatment works that can discharge this kind of quality that you can use the water for recycling? Or is it the case that in the NDAs all the flushing would be done by reclaimed water? Director? In NDAs we need to have new treatment works.
We will be facing the same issue. That is, for the new treatment plants, we have to raise it to tertiary levels, and therefore, for that area, for effluent treated, it can be subject to simple disinfection and then can be recycled. What about using it for flushing purposes? Well, for the reclaimed water, the quality of such water is used for flushing purposes in places like Singapore. Some would even go further and have more extensive uses. Dr. Helena Wong, 3 minutes in second round. The Metro Park on Kai Tak. I think in the beginning it was regarded as a central park in Kowloon East, occupying 24.5 hectares to be ready in 2021. Can you elaborate on the timetable for commissioning this park? Ms. Au or PS? The scale will still be the same for the Metro Park. As to when the construction can start, it depends on the water quality at the approach of the Nala. We have said that we are going to adopt a three-pronged approach. At the typhoon shelter as well as the Nala approach, we are going to remove the sludge and will decontaminate the place, and then upstream of the Nala, for wrong connection of stormwater drains, we are going to rectify the situation. I think if you had the chance to visit the place there, you must have noticed that there has been a marked improvement in the odor. Is it possible to build a park by phases? This is because a part of it is right between Kai Ching Estate and Tek Long Estate. Is it possible to complete that portion first because population intake has been completed? The Metro Park is mainly at the tip of the runway rather than near the two housing estates. Just now, I've said that after we have carried out our work, there will be a third part. That is whether we need to have an opening at the runway. We're actively pursuing this matter. In the past, we've said that maybe we'd like to have 600 meters. Nowadays, we know that we don't need to have that length. the park will be near to the opening. The park won't be that near to the two housing estates, but then it can still be regarded as a central park for high-tech development. For the artificial island and its relationship with the East Lantau metropolis, are you going to come here to get funding approval? The artificial island in the central waters. For all mega projects, we will carry out public consultation. For the funding requested, we do include an element for public consultation. Next, Tony Chair, 3 minutes, second round. Yes, I would like to follow up on some of my questions. First of all, 055, this is about rooftop greening as well as vertical greening. The director of ASD has been kind enough to tell us in the third paragraph of his answer, talking about the minimum requirements for government buildings. Well, my question is, for existing government buildings, of course, you can only encourage more greening for rooftop when the building is renovated. But what about vertical greening? Is it possible for you to find adequate manpower to retrofit it, so to speak, for existing buildings, so that vertical greening can be carried out in accordance with a target, say a certain number of buildings within a year? So that's about government buildings. What about the private sector? Do you have any measures to encourage rooftop greening or vertical greening? Thank you. Secretary, if I may invite Mr. Leung to answer the first part of the question. Yes, Mr. Leung. Rooftop greening and vertical greening. Every year, we talk to our client departments and try to introduce greening. For rooftop greening, as Mr. Chair has said, whenever we have large-scale renovation, we'll take the opportunity to carry out roof greening. For existing buildings, we have a warranty period for the waterproof work for the roof, so we don't want to jeopardize the warranty period by introducing something upon after the completion of construction work. So we take the opportunity of major renovation. The same is true for vertical greening. We have been talking to client departments to identify where we can introduce vertical greening. Every year we have a few projects to apply vertical greening to existing buildings. What about the private sector? I can defer to Mr. Lam. Yes, Mr. Lam. For green buildings, the Development Bureau and other bureaus have been liaising with the Green Building Council to promote the idea in the private sector. We have also come up with guidelines to promote the concept, and so far, every year, say for example, from time to time, we will come up with competitions and awards. That's it for this session. We'll come back at 5:55.